And welcome back, everyone. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and this is what I call my morning musings. Appreciate you being with me very, very much. Let me say, first of all, that I just really appreciate all of the wonderful, kind, and positive remarks that have been sent to me, especially privately, concerning my debate with Dr. Michael Brown yesterday. You can watch that debate, the entirety of it, on YouTube. Just look for the Brown-Preston debate on YouTube, and you'll find it there. I want to thank Dr. Brown for his gracious conduct, and the fact that the comments have been so positive so far is just a wonderful, wonderful sign. And we are examining the eschatology of the parables of Jesus. We're looking at Matthew chapter 24, verse 32. The disciples had asked Jesus, in response to his prediction of the fall of Jerusalem and the temple, "Tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of your coming in the end of the age?" Now let's make something perfectly clear. The disciples were not confused, as most commentators say. They knew that the fall of the temple was the day of the Lord. That's proven from the Old Testament. They knew from Daniel chapter 12, verse 3 and 4, that the end of the age and the coming of the Lord was likewise tied to the destruction of Old Covenant Israel. Daniel 12, 3 through 7. So they were not confused at all to make that association. Well, anyway, they asked Jesus for a sign of his coming in the end of the age. Jesus gave them the signs. One of those signs was this gospel of the kingdom would be preached in all of the world as a witness to the nations. Then comes the end. Well, don't forget, be sure to get a copy of my book entitled Into All the World, Then Comes the End. I have a chart in here demonstrating that every single word that Jesus used to predict the preaching of the gospel into all of the world, oikumene, or the world, cosmos, or the earth, gi, or every creature, katisses, etc., Paul used to say it had been done and preached into all the cosmos, all the oikumene, to every creature, etc. It's a powerful, powerful chart. Well, anyway, we are told by our dispensational friends that when Jesus said, "Learn this parable of the fig tree, when its branches already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door." Well, we are told that the fig tree here is Israel. And what Jesus was really saying was that when you see Israel restored, then you know that the coming of the Lord and the end of the age is near. And thus, when Jesus said, Matthew 24, verse 34, "Verily I say unto you, this generation shall by no means pass away until all of these things are fulfilled," that demanded that when Israel was restored, that generation would see the coming of the Lord. Well, Hal Lindsey told us, 1980s, countdown to Armageddon. Well, he kind of blew that, didn't he? Because 1988 was the end of the 40-year generation. So Lindsay jumped up and said, all of a sudden, with no biblical documentation, no proof whatsoever, that a biblical generation is 125 years. Folks, that's unbiblical. But what about this? Was Jesus saying, when you see Israel restored, then the generation in which Israel is restored must see the coming of the Lord and the end of the age? That is simply untenable. Jesus is simply giving an illustration. An illustration from the world in which he was living in, that he says, hey, look, when you see the fig tree, you know that summer is near. Likewise, when you see all of these things, what things? Preaching the gospel into all the world, the abomination of desolation, then you know that the coming of the Lord is at hand. It's that simple. How do I know that? Well, in Luke 21:29, which is the direct parallel, it is, now learn the parable of the fig tree and all of the trees. So if you're going to say, well, the fig tree is Israel, so Israel was restored in 1948, well, guess what? According to Luke, it's all of the nations. So I got a question for you. Were all of the nations restored in 1948? You know that won't work. You know, point of fact is, folks, 1948 had no prophetic significance whatsoever. In my book, Israel 1948, Countdown to Nowhere, I take the dispensational claims that 1948 was the fulfillment of Ezekiel chapter 20, Ezekiel 34, Ezekiel 37, a host of other passages. Basically, they make the argument from 5 verses. And I demonstrate that every single one of those verses actually says that Israel would not be restored in a state of unbelief. And yet, even dispensationalists agree that Israel in 1948 was predominantly atheists, agnostics, and unbelievers. Folks, God never promised to restore Israel in a state of rebellion against Him. You need to get a copy of my book, Israel 1948, Countdown to Nowhere. Just like the book, then comes the end. Into all the world, then comes the end. I tell you what, let's do. Let's do a package deal here. If you go to my website and order Into All the World, and then comes the end, and if you order Israel 1948, I will pay the shipping on both books. Okay? That saves you $10 over what you would order them separately. Okay? Do the package deal. And I'm telling you, this is a powerful, powerful package. So, go to my website, eschatology.org, bibleprophecy.com, order the 2 books, say that you saw the offer on YouTube and Facebook, and I'll refund the shipping on both books. That will save you almost $10. Thanks so much for joining me for this morning's Morning Musings. Have a fantastic weekend. Lord willing, we'll see you on Monday.